I'd like you to try something very quickly for me that will tell me a lot about how effective your bicep training is right now. And it starts by just simply bending your elbow and squeezing your bicep as hard as you possibly can. And what I'm looking for here is a discomfort. That would be what we want. If you don't get it, then twist your wrist over a little bit more and turn it out and see if that elicits that cramping discomfort. If it still doesn't do it, then lift the elbow up just to about here, holding on to that twisted wrist, and see if that elicits the discomfort. Now, whether or not you had the discomfort down here, here, or even up here, or not at all, tells me a lot about the way that you should be performing your bicep exercises. What's up, guys? Jeff Cavalier, ATHLEAN-X.com. When it comes to building big biceps, if you're watching this video, then you're likely making some mistakes. But that's okay, because that's where I come in to help you out. And I'm going to point out the 6 biggest ones that I see almost everybody make every single day. And it starts with not lifting the weight the right way. If you're doing this on a curl, you're not doing it right. It's because most of us simply focus on moving from point A to point Z, not realizing that the real benefit of the exercise is learning how to hit every single letter in between. You need to slow every repetition down. And I don't care if that means you need to sacrifice some of the weight you're using on any of the curl exercises you're doing. 4 seconds up, 4 seconds down is a good place to start. You're actually recruiting more motor units to the exercise at hand, and more specifically, bicep motor units. We're not just letting the other muscles or the other elbow flexors like the brachioradialis and brachialis do the job. You're learning how to contract your way through the exercise, and by doing so, you get more effective repetitions every single one you do. If you're not doing any of this slow motion training right now, then I highly encourage you to implement at least 1 or 2 sets, and I promise you, you'll feel it better, and ultimately, you'll look better because of it. Which brings me to mistake number 2, and since I've got you doing some demonstrations for me, I want you to do one more. This one's simple. This time, when you curl, I want you to keep your wrist straight with your fingers straight up and down. And I want you to feel that contraction I just talked about as you pull up. Now, contrast that with bending your wrist backwards. Even as you fix it from the top here, you should automatically feel a much stronger contraction. But I want you to do it as you curl up, you start to bend that wrist back. And if you don't get that cramping feeling before, you might actually start feeling it right away. Why is this happening? Because the extension of the wrist will help to take some of the forearm out of the exercise. And though that may not be that big a deal for people who want bigger forearms, I can guarantee you, if you're trying to get bigger biceps, it's a problem. You focus too much on maintaining this stable wrist here, and that's causing you to take away some of the focus on just lifting the weight. As a physical therapist, I'm telling you right now, there's nothing wrong with allowing wrist extension as you lift the bar up. It's actually quite natural. If I was going to push against something, I'm going to do it with a slightly extended wrist because that's the strongest position of the wrist. So allowing yourself to get into a stronger wrist position is not going to all of a sudden disintegrate the bones in your wrist. Carry that bar in the middle portion of your palm right here, not in the distal portion of your fingers, and you'll not only have a more effective curl on every single repetition you do, but you'll actually have a more biomechanically correct curl. Mistake number 3 is actually a big one, and it's not really your fault, because it's based on the advice you've been given. But it doesn't make it any less of a mistake, and you need to fix it. And then you've likely been told that, hey, look, it doesn't matter how many curls you do, just stick to a few basic ones. However, make sure you're doing enough of them, because volume is what really drives bicep gains. No, it's not. As a matter of fact, I'd rather see you do far less sets of bicep training and focus more on the variation of the curl that you're doing, because all curls are not the same. See, if I break out my old trusty muscle markers, I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. We know that if you look at the bottom half here of the bicep, I could actually basically find this little split right about here. And that I could trace right down, of course go all the way up to the top. But this right here would be the short head of my bicep, okay? And what this is responsible for, you can see, is the width of the arm when looked at from the front. Of course, with the brachialis too, but it's that overhang that comes in this direction that the short head of the biceps is responsible for. And then we could take the red marker and basically fill in the blanks with everything around that's left. And you'll see that this, which we call the long head, is responsible more for the height, right? The peak of the biceps. Whether I look at it from here, it's what you see at the top, or whether I look at it from here. And again, if I look at it from this side here, it provides quite a big peak when looked at from behind. Well, it's not necessarily what's going on in the front side that should be of interest to you. It's what's going on inside the shoulder joint that really makes the difference between the exercise choices here, because the attachments matter. The short head of the bicep, the one over here, attaches lower down. to the scapula, but at a lower point, the coracoid process. Whereas the long head of the bicep attaches further, actually crosses the shoulder joint and attaches to the top of that joint. Well, what's the difference? The one that crosses the shoulder joint actually has an impact on the exercises you do, because if you place that shoulder into extension, you'll get greater stretch, which can help to recruit more muscle fibers to the exercise, so stronger contractions. So making sure that not all of your bicep workouts are focused on either one type or the other, but including both. And again, you can do fewer sets if you've got more of that representation across both heads of the biceps. So what are we looking at? Arms out exercises, ones with your arms in front of you, are going to generally be more short head focused. Why? Because with the arm out in front, your shoulder's in some flexion, you're taking away some of that stretch benefit and pre-activation that would contribute more to the long head being a little bit more preferentially active. Remember, this is not about isolating one head versus the other. This is about preferentially impacting one a little bit more than the other. Whereas exercises that have your arms back behind your body, like an incline curl, are going to give you a chance to get a little bit more of that stretch to focus a little bit more on the long head. Another guideline for you could be this, and it's very simple. What you see is what you train. So if you look in the mirror and you're seeing the inside portion or the short head of the biceps by doing exercises like a no money curl, for instance, you're going to be training a little bit more of the short head of the biceps. Whereas if you have your arms turned in a little bit more with an exercise like the waiter curl or even with a drag curl, you're going to see that the long head is more visible to you from the front. And therefore the exercise is a little bit more effective at hitting the long head. You need to vary your exercise selection, but you don't have to do it at the expense of lots and lots of extra sets. Hone in on that volume and broaden the variety a little bit, and I promise you're going to get better results. Now, can we talk about mistake number 4? And that is falling in love with the wrong magic exercise, because there is none. As a matter of fact, though I just talked about the benefits of an incline curl for adding stretch to an exercise, can we stop falling in love with stretch-only exercises? Because it's only one small piece of the puzzle, and ignoring all the other factors that contribute to a good exercise is really a big problem. Hell, I just told you how you need to mix the exercises up to focus more on long head and short head variability. Well, focusing on just a stretch exercise would kind of eliminate a lot of the short head focused exercises. Not a good thing. If I gave you only one curl to do for the rest of your life, and it's the only one you can do, would you truly choose an incline dumbbell curl? And be honest, probably not. Because what you should be choosing is still a heavy barbell curl with a good eccentric focus. What I mean is a good cheek curl with a slow eccentric on the way down. Why? Because that will build muscle 10 times out of 10 more than any stretch-focused exercise will. Because the stretch focus is only one piece of the puzzle, like I just said. When you take a heavy barbell curl and you lower the weight down, you're getting an elongation of that muscle. You are stretching the muscle. You're just not in its terminally stretched state. In other words, the last 20 degrees behind the body. You're not getting that portion, but you're still elongating the muscle under tension, but with a much heavier load than you could in any incline dumbbell curl. I could pose the same question to you about tricep training, and intuitively you're going to know the answer, whether you want to admit it or you don't. And that is, if I gave you one tricep exercise to do, would you choose a good heavy skull crusher, or would you choose a single dumbbell overhead arm extension that fully stretches the tricep? I'm not saying that there's not a benefit. Again, there's a big benefit to getting that long head of the biceps under some focused attention, but it's not to do it at the expense of everything else. And it's the combination of that accumulated tension that drives greater hypertrophy if you actually allow it to. And again, there's no studies out there yet that show a good heavy cheek curl versus an incline curl, because I know when they do, they're going to find what I'm saying to be true. Guys, don't fall in love with any magic exercise. Just make sure you're doing enough of them to round out your bicep training. And that brings me to mistake number 5.
Whoa.
Oh, there's 7?
There's 7.
Not 6?
Not 6.
What did we title the video?
6.
So 6 and a bonus?
6 and a bonus.
And that brings us to mistake number 5 of 6 and a bonus, and that is always doing your curls both arms at a time. Because when we do this, we actually create a little bit of a problem in terms of overloading and addressing muscle imbalances. If you were to do a typical barbell curl, because the hands are tethered together by holding the barbell itself, you don't really know whether one arm is weaker than the other. Because even if it's just a little bit, maybe 5 or 10% of a discrepancy, the one stronger arm is going to be enough to carry you through and keep that bar level, so you don't really see the difference. But you still want to address them. But the other thing is you're introducing a secondary demand that could be undercutting your bicep performance, and that is a weak core. When you curl the bar at once, let's say you're curling 95 pounds. That's 95 pounds that your body has to stabilize because it's moving you in that direction. So the only way to do that is by having a strong core that can keep you upright. If I instead lift dumbbells, I can take half the weight, 40 or 45 pounds in each hand, and now I only have to control 45 pounds moving in that direction. So the core demands are a lot less. The other interesting thing that you might find is that by splitting the weight up and doing alternating dumbbell curls, you might actually be able to handle a sum total with both dumbbells that's heavier than the barbell weight you were using because of this weak core. Just don't let your core be what undermines your ability to build bigger biceps, but at the same time, don't avoid the barbell altogether because we know its benefits. Mistake number 6 of 6, and now a bonus, is forgetting to take the opportunity to overload supination when you curl. And this is most impactful on your bicep, banded, and cable exercises. And the reason is very simple. Because the supination is the main differentiator between the biceps and those two other flexors of the elbow, the brachialis and the brachioradialis. If you actually include supination, but not just do that, overload it, you're going to get better results from your biceps training. So this is what I'm talking about. When I go and lift the dumbbell up, a lot of us will actually just pre-supinate. We get in this position right here, and we just lift it up like this, and we curl it in this supinated position. But we're missing an opportunity to overload supination. And all I have to do that is just slide my grip from the middle of the dumbbell to the far end of the dumbbell. If I grab it right up against the end here and hold it like that, the tilting of the dumbbell is naturally occurring because the weight wants to fall this way. It's like a seesaw. If I have the weight down, I have to lift it up this way by actively supinating. So if I go back now to doing my traditional curls with this in this position here, as I lift, I have to overload supination. If I can overload supination and flexion at the same time, then I can get a better exercise. And again, it's not limited to just the dumbbell exercises. I could do this by how I wrap the cable around my hand and how I also wrap the band around my hand. If I do it like this, I'm able to get that offset load, which forces me to get more active supination and again, better bicep stimulation. And now for the bonus tip for you guys who want to know, okay, what can I do that's going to make my bicep workouts much more effective? Well, since we know that, yes, the variation in curls is important, the biomechanics of the curl are pretty much the same. So where we get a lot of the stimulus for growth is how we do the exercises we do. And the first thing I recommend is something we call sliced reps. It's very different than something you've ever done if you haven't tried them. And what we do is we take a weight we can do for about 15 reps on the curl. And instead of just dropping them all the way down, we just drop it 1/9 of the way. Because what we're trying to do is divide this rep into 9 different pieces. Now I bring them back up to the top, and this time I divide it into 8 pieces in the same way. And the next time I divide it into 7 pieces, all the way down until I have just 2 pieces, halfway down, back to the top, and all the way down, back to the top, and that's my set. The next thing we could do is increase that time by, again, doing what I showed before, and that is just slowing down the repetitions. Again, I recommended you do this on every single workout you do. Try one set of deliberately trying to go really slow with really high focus on the tension you're delivering to the muscle in every single inch of the repetition. Not just every rep, but every inch of the repetition. We also can do something called purgatory reps. And here we're just maintaining the hardest part of the exercise while the other arm is actually quote unquote working. So what we do is we start with both arms held in the middle of the repetition. We drop one arm down, curl it all the way up, and then stop and hang out in purgatory in that hard portion of the rep while we then initiate the movement on the other side. So while one arm is technically doing the motion of the rep, both arms are certainly working here, and it's another way to drive more stimulus and more overload to the biceps. And of course, we could do one of my all-time favorites, which is a mechanical drop set, starting with some variation of a strict curl here done up against the wall, that when I reach fatigue, I'm not done. I can go beyond failure now by allowing some body cheat. So a little bit of body English, get that weight up to the top, and focus again on those eccentric contractions, knowing that the eccentric is going to be stronger and more durable than those concentric contractions, which allows me to go beyond what I'm typically used to, which again is a good driver for new growth. So guys, I hope I helped you to fix a lot of the mistakes that you're making right now. It's okay to make them. It's just more important that you fix them, and now you have a fix for them. If you're looking for a complete program, guys, we apply the biomechanics to what we do. You can find them over at ATHLEAN-X.com. We put the science and strength and also back in supplementation. They're available over there as well. Make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss a video when we put one out. All right, guys, see you soon.